In this week's Crisis in the Classroom, parents in one North Carolina county enraged after their preschoolers were taught about gender identity using flashcards. One of the cards showed a pregnant man. And joining us today, Parents Defending Education Director of Outreach, Erika Sanzi. Thanks for joining us this morning. Now, this happened in Wake County, North Carolina. So we're talking about kids under the age of 5. Now, the principal determined the cards were inappropriate, so they were confiscated. And he said it certainly was not part of the curriculum. The teacher claims, though, that the cards were used to teach colors. What did you find out?
Well, it is true that they were used to teach colors, but they were used to teach the colors of the flag. That it started out as a pride flag, and they've now added more and more colors. So the color white actually was used to teach about non-binary and intersex people. So again, let's imagine we're talking about preschoolers being introduced to concepts such as being non-binary and also intersex, and then they use this card that you're showing on the screen of a pregnant male. So the amount of ideology or queer theory, really, and then confusion infused in this lesson is actually like hard to even believe. But yeah, because again, we're talking about children who are learning to associate colors with things, right? So they would see a picture of milk, or they would see a picture of eggs, so that when they see the color white, they know, oh, my toothpaste is white, the floor of my kitchen is white. And instead they've inserted something that is incredibly ideological, totally inappropriate, and also would actually impede their learning of actual colors.
Was there any disciplinary action against the teacher?
I do not know. The last I had heard, there had not been. So I'm not sure, but I certainly think that any adult who made a decision that this was appropriate material for preschoolers probably should not be working in a preschool classroom.
State Representative Aaron Parr said this, quote, "Schools should only be using age-appropriate materials, and these flashcards clearly do not meet that standard for a preschool classroom." And Erika, we are seeing more and more of these cases where teachers are kind of going rogue, going on their own and making course decisions that parents are not agreeing with, that the curriculum does not follow, and that administrators say was not part of the curriculum. What do you want parents that may be in a similar situation know?
I think it's really, really important and high time that parents almost see their responsibility or their duty to speak out about this, right? So sometimes you'll have something like this will happen and parents will talk amongst themselves in hushed tones, but nobody will bring it forward to any official or authority that has the power to do something. In this case, the person did bring it to the attention of their legislator, who then contacted the principal. But I think really at this point, parents are going to have to step up and decide that when something this inappropriate and this ideological happens, especially in a classroom of such young children, they really owe it to everyone else around to bring it to the attention of the people who can do something about it.
In a poll released this week, North Carolina voters overwhelmingly supported the idea of passing legislation that would make parents the primary decision makers regarding their child's health and medical decisions, and provide parents with opt-out options regarding controversial surveys or age-inappropriate classroom materials. So does this mean that parents were never given this before? They never had this power before?
It depends, because it does vary state to state. But what I will say is that there is a federal law in place that's been in place for a very long time. It's called the Protection of Pupil Amendment, or the PPRA. And it has always granted the right to parents to view all surveys in advance, to view or inspect all instructional materials that are being used in the classroom. And it also has always given them the right to opt out, which means the schools have an obligation under federal law to provide a mechanism through which parents can opt their children out of surveys. Unfortunately, the vast majority of school districts are out of compliance. And my conversations with school leaders have revealed that they don't know anything about this federal law. So the reason that we're seeing a lot of action at the state level is because the federal law has just not been sufficient to to protect these rights that are already in place, because nobody in positions of authority in school districts seem to even have any knowledge about the federal law.
And with the midterms on the horizon, how much of an issue do you think this is going to be with parents? You really have the pulse of so many parents right now. What are you hearing?
I mean, it's really hard to say, of course, because I'm overwhelmingly speaking to parents who are already upset, right? So the parents who think this is all great aren't contacting us. But there is definitely something afoot where a lot of parents' eyes are just wide open now, and many are saying that they will vote accordingly based on either this issue of ideological capture and inappropriate school materials and hyper politicization, of their children's education, or they're saying that they will vote based on the COVID restrictions, especially schools that were closed for long periods of time, and also mask mandates. So it seems to me that education and school issues will be a much bigger driver in people's voting patterns this time around than they have been in recent elections.
All right. Erika Sanzi with Parents Defending Education. We certainly appreciate you joining us this morning. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.